How's everybody doing? A little bit louder, come on. We got this. So our next guest is John Noble, one of my favorite actors, because he's been in Fringe, Elementary, Sleepy Hollow, Stargate, Legends of Tomorrow, The Boys. Film credits include Lord of the Rings, Conjuring. His voice acting has been in many video games, and he appeared on Cowboy Bebop and Star Trek Prodigy. So let's hear a good, warm welcome for Mr. John Noble.
Hello.
Am I on? You're on, sir.
Oh, I'm on. How are you? Ah, what a wonderful weekend it's been. Don't you think? Good weather. We've had marvellous crowds here. We've got to meet so many people. It's been fantastic. Just coming in, winding it down now, but so pleased to get a chance to talk to you all. The way that Jason suggested we do this, he's got a few questions for me, and then there'll be some questions from you, which we'll try and get through as well. So thank you for being here. It's lovely. Jason?
Yes. If you guys do want to start lining up here for questions, go right ahead. Yeah. Do not be shy.
Come on. Oh, there's someone over there taking a photo.
I think they're worn out from the expo.
I'm not going to sit here for too long because I think I'll go to sleep. Like watching television, I last about 2 minutes, which is not good. Oh dear. Sorry, mate. Up you go.
So, my favorite role of yours has been Walter Bishop in Fringe.
My favourite too, Jason.
So I'm rewatching that series with my oldest son now, and to see it through his eyes first time. First off, Fringe is a lot more horrifying and frightening than I remember it to be. Some of those episodes. What can you talk a little bit about your experience getting into the role of Walter Bishop and just the whole role of Fringe and how you played that role as a scientist that everybody thinks has kind of lost his marbles, but he really hasn't.
That's a lot of questions. You got all afternoon. How did I get the role? There is a story to it because I was in Los Angeles in 2007, I think it was, and my daughter was also there trying out for things. And she rang me and she said, "Dad, there's a role coming up and this J.J. Abrams thing is made for you." I said, "Oh, okay." So I got onto my manager and I said, "Oh, this is going to be good. Can you just put my name up for it?" He came back half an hour later and he said, "They don't want to see you. You're too old or you're too fat or you're too some bloody thing." Oh, whatever. So we went home for Christmas with the rest of the family and I get this phone call. "Would you please put down a tape for this role?" And it was exactly the role that she thought I should be going for. And it was this audition scene was fantastic, really was. And so I did it, and Sam, my daughter, read Olivia's part against me, and we had a friend who was a cinematographer filmed it, and they were the days he had to send hard copies across to from other places. Anyway, next day I got a call, "Yeah, you got the role," which is really amazing, because normally to get into a television series, you have to go through a series of auditions and even down to chemistry auditions. It goes on forever. But I've never had to do that, I'm pleased. I think I'd get worn out with all that. So I got it, and then I think 2 weeks later. No, that's right. But you better come to LA just for a few days to meet some people. So I did. Then a couple of weeks later, we were up in Toronto shooting the pilot of it. So that's the sort of long... But in terms of preparation, yeah, I mean, I did a lot of preparation for Walter because I was dealing with a man who was a genius, and they're a different breed of people. They see the world differently. They communicate with people differently. It must be terribly frustrating for geniuses to have to deal with mere mortals all the time. But Walter was certainly that. So I did some research into the social implications of being a genius. And it's a pretty lonely life, actually. Then I also had to look at his background, because you know, when you're acting, you create the backstory. You create the backstory. So I thought I'd to create a backstory. So I did, and I figured out he was from the great Harvard experiments in the 80s, where they investigated all the drugs and LSD and all that. And so he was part of that mob too, which is part of his love of drugs. and rock and roll music. He was playing around. So that was his sort of background coming into it, working with other great scientists. The other thing was that I was trying to work out with certain drugs, like he'd been in that hospital and obviously being pumped up with whatever they were pumping him up with, and I thought, wonder what the effects of that are in the long term and the short term on a character. I don't know if any of you saw Fringe, but the opening scene of Fringe was Walter sitting down talking, and he had a hand going the whole time. It was a mannerism as a result of the drugs he'd been taking. And if you look carefully, every now and again during the next 5 years, you'll see Walter when he's under pressure. He does that. Just a little thing to watch for next time. That's a sort of reminder back to it. And how long the drugs take to wear off. I did all that research very thoroughly. So by the time I got... Oh, and also I was always interested in science, but I made sure that I got really caught up. Really caught up with contemporary physics and so forth before I did the show. Because it's a terrible thing to have to do a role where you're describing something technical and you don't know what you're talking about. And it's always evident. So I would always have to take those difficult speeches and break them back so that I knew exactly what I was talking about. And that's what comes through to the audience. And so that was also a hell of an adventure preparing for that role. And of course the estrangement from Peter, that naughty boy. So he was a grump, wasn't he? He finally forgave me in the final episode. When I said to him, "You're my favourite thing, Peter." And he cried. I had two of those. I had a final speech with Jessica Nicole, who played Astrid, and in that, and the final thing I said was, "It's a beautiful name, Astrid." In 5 years, I'd never called her a proper name, so that was, and Jessica turned around, and she tears running down her face. It was like, oh my God, this has come to an end. So what a treasure she was. Oh, sorry, man, go on.
Did you have, you and Joshua Jackson had a great relationship on screen. Can you talk a little bit about that off screen, how you guys bonded over that role?
Well, a lot of it was to do with how do people regain trust in relationships, you know, that whole thing, how do we get to be trusted again? So for that lad that was basically abandoned, that trust was very deeply hidden, I tell you. So Josh and I talked about this a lot, that you don't just forgive someone overnight, they've hurt you, you know, just say, oh, that's all right, didn't matter, best friends. No, it's going to take time. And so we made it take time, and there'd be a little step forward and then 2 steps back. And so it grew, consciously grew during the course of doing it, and hence the wonderful story that existed between Peter and Walter. It's a beautiful love story, really. There's a few love stories in that. I often think that Fringe was about love stories. Walter was obviously very keen to get back in contact with his son again. So there was a love search there. Finally, Peter saw the light. But there's also the love affair between Olivia and Peter, and Jessica and me, and others. It was a very loving show to be on. But yeah, that's the love story. Yeah. Sorry, did I answer a question there? Did not. I ramble on a bit sometimes. So, are you asking me something?
No. I was going to ask you, which is the opposite of Denethor in Lord of the Rings. Is that correct?
What was that?
Is that the opposite of relationship you had in Lord of the Rings?
Well, Lord of the Rings was... Oh, we can talk about that. It's interesting because with Denethor also, you do your research. And there was a certain amount of it covered in the books. Certainly not in the film, it wasn't discussed. So I did all that research, and there were still some gaping holes in there. I couldn't work out why he was so vile to his son, to Faramir. I couldn't work that out. As a father, I thought that was really a profound thing. So I did a backstory in my mind. He had he had married a woman called Finduilis in his youth, and they were the perfect love. They loved each other to death. This is my story. They were like, that was all they wanted with each other. They got married, and they had a child, and it was Boromir, the perfect child. Absolutely perfect boy came. And they were happy as could be. They decided to make another baby. And the second child was coming along, and Finduilis died in childbirth, basically, to cut a long story short. And as a result of which Denethor was devastated, and saw that Faramir is to blame for this because he was the baby. And he had that terrible situation going on with Faramir all of the kid's life because he was blaming him for the loss of his great love. And that's how, I had to do that because how else could you possibly do what he did to Faramir unless you had something driving you, unless you're a complete lunatic, and he wasn't. And he had a lot of reasons for being as sad as he was, but that's the background to the history that I found with him. Some of it was in the books, but a lot of it was in my imagination as well. But you have to have that sort of stuff, or you can't perform. You can't perform truthfully unless you have a truth to tell. And I always made sure, in my work, I always make sure that a truth. It doesn't have to be anyone else's truth, it has to be mine, because then I can deliver the lines with truth, which is half the trick of being an actor, as you can imagine. So, there you go. Denethor.
Did you have a question?
Oh, here we go, yeah.
So, I'm a big fan. I love the type of casting or the type of acting you bring to many of the roles that you bring on there.
Thank you.
Usually when I see you on there, we know there's going to be a really great line or a great set that you're going to bring to whatever the show be, voice acting, in person.
That's lovely, mate. I appreciate that.
So, as an actor, is there a particular typecasting that you like to look for when your roles and everything?
No, it's a good question. To some extent, the looking's done ahead of time. As you get on, you get asked to go for parts or to audition for things. I don't know. So can you repeat the question again? Because it's
do you look for? I know the roles come to you.
So no, then the casters or the directors say, "Oh, John would be good in that." That happens a lot now as I've got old. And no, I mean, there's some shows I won't do, and it's not because I think I'm too good for them. It's quite the opposite. There's the roles where people come onto a show, set up a character, say a policeman or something or other, and that character remains constant for the whole 5 or 6 years or whatever it is, and yet I couldn't do that. I'd be, what do you hang on to there? What am I going to hang on to here? So I'd say to my manager, please don't put me up with what I call them two-dimensional roles. Please don't put me up. I said, no, really, I'm so bad at them. I can see myself auditioning for them, blushing, thinking, what do I do with this bloody thing? I don't get to stand up here and do myself. I'm not going to do that. That would be embarrassing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't, but I do choose, and particularly of late, because I'm at the end of my career, I see things, they know what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And the Devils, because I told my manager I was going to retire, she said, oh, no, you can't do that, can't do that. And what normally happens in our business, as soon as you say you're not available, someone says, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And so the night before I left Australia to come back here, just a few weeks ago, so my manager rings me. Oh, hello. I got this thing. You won't believe it. It's this bloody dream job. Oh, did it again. And so first of all I said no, then they kept, I wanted to do it so bad, I'm going to do it so badly. It's only for a few weeks that happened. My wife wasn't too impressed, I tell you. She said you were retiring, you're going back there now. Oh. I'll only be another 5 years, love, it's all right. She got sick of it. Yeah, we're looking forward to our sunset years somewhere. It'll be good fun. It's taken a while to get there. We've been married for 50 years. So, do we have another question? Is that it? Anyone else want to ask a question?
I think we got one over there.
Oh, hello.
All right, this is a little tall for me. But you do such a great job of playing villains, but you're a perfectly lovely person. Is this something that you get approached for, or is it you seek out these things because they're so different?
No, it's not. As I said, it's not so much that I seek them out. I was my gift is my voice. That's a gift. You know, you can't. You're given that, or you're not given it. And then you, in my case, I had the voice trained by a very good voice teacher. So that's a part of the power that comes from having a voice, presence. I never think of them as bad, though. I never think of characters as bad or good or anything. I just see people. So it could be Dennis, or it's a person, just like us, who's responding to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune just as we do. Or, I don't know if I've played a good character. Well, Walter's good. Walter Bishop was good. But I don't think of them as good or bad or evil. It's just people doing what people do, like we do, you know. Sometimes we're really wonderful and sometimes we ain't. And so they come out, if it's in the writing, they'll come out that way. But I don't try to make them that. You know what I mean? I don't try and play a baddie or a goodie, just play a person. Because and similarly with comedy, by the way, you know, we are incredibly funny, us. Just sitting here, all of us, we're funny. Just can't help it. And so what I found that about comedy is just observe people a lot. Observe how we screw it up sometimes and the mistakes we make and the lack of communication. Just play it. Don't play it for laughs or you'll die. As soon as you start to play for laughs, you're dead. So you just deliver it. And then it becomes funny because it's just like us. That's what we do all the time. You know, just deliver stuff. So I like the characters I play. A lot of them get killed off though. I wonder why. Jumping off buildings or getting shot. I was, a couple of years ago, I was doing a show called Cowboy Bebop down in New Zealand. And it's just a few episodes. And I think the final one, my son, whom I'd already beaten up by this time, decided that was the end of me, so he killed me. So I was killed by my son. But I got this call about The Boys, which was being shot the other side of the world. And I went up there because Carl was in Carl Urban, and that one, he did me. You know, so suddenly, rather than being the oppressive father, I belted the shit out of him. I mean, really, we had a good old fight, but he got me in the end. Well, not really. So it's just funny playing these roles. What sort of father are you? I don't know. I could understand why the one in Cowboy Bebop responded the way he did. I could, even though I wouldn't prefer it myself to be. And with Carl Urban, well, the reason I took it was because we had both done Lord of the Rings together, although we'd never worked together, but we kept in contact. And I wanted to go and support him, and I knew the show was good. And it was only one scene. So I flew from Wellington to Vancouver to do that one scene with him. That's how that came about. And so I went from being I got killed by my son, and then the next one I was in, the opposite happened where the son took precedence over me, and you know, these things happen all the time. It's quite amusing, really. And sons and not so long before that, I'd done The Conjuring 3, and in that, my daughter slit my throat. And this is a trick, because they approached me to do that Conjuring thing, and I said, no, I don't know. The caster said to my management, look, please get John to do it. If you do, there'll be a major part in the next film coming, the next Conjuring, whatever. I was right. Anyway, I went and did it, and I enjoyed it enormously. Terrific people. And we're getting towards the end of the shoot, and there's this scene in there where he gets his throat cut. I said, hey, but how can I come back next season if I'm dead? And they said, oh, don't worry about it. We'll sort that out. That was the end of that. So I was quite surprised to have your throat cut by your daughter. Isn't that horrible? You look at your children a bit strangely. The Conjuring. It was a good show. I love the people that worked on it, you know, and they wrote some extra scenes for me and stuff. Yes, sir.
My wife and I, we absolutely loved Fringe, loved you in Fringe.
Okay.
And you played two different Walters, and they were so polar opposites. One so evil and genius, and the other just kind of nice and goofy. How did you make those kind of transitions between those two roles?
Fantastic question. It's a great question. How do you make the transition? Here's the thing, that in life, we are faced always with decisions, always. You know, it's like sliding doors. I could have gone that way, I could have gone that way, depending on circumstances. In that case, I would play it that the same boy, man, was presented with different challenges. So Walter was given the freedom to explore his science and to go the way he went, and that's where he wanted it. The other man didn't get that freedom. He was put into a position of responsibility very early in the piece, and his job was to be a leader to his people. Same boy, went different ways. And so in my playing of it, there was essentially the same person in a different circumstance. And there were some physical differences I put in, but not unusual. Like, for example, Walter was always shuffling around like that, whereas Walton, it was always just the little things, always upright. And whereas Walter would stumble around things like that. Walton, it was very clear in his voice. But these were choices that were made by a boy at some stage or other. Life forced them into certain circumstances. So I never had a trouble playing that double. I loved doing it. And sometimes at a really rapid change, you'd do the morning scenes as Walter. Quick, back to the wardrobe and come out a bit later as Walton, strutting around the place. Doing the same day. It was good. Yes, sir.
So are there any Kiwi or Oz directors, storytellers, actors?
Could you take that off when we're talking to me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Are there any Kiwi or Oz actors, directors, storytellers that you'd want to work with in your career anymore? I know a lot of them are starting to come up. Taika Waititi, Rhys Davies. They're all coming into the forefront now. Are there any Kiwi or Oz actors, storytellers that you'd want to work with?
I hear it. No, I don't. I mean, there are actors I admire, and always have admired. So I got a chance to work with Al Pacino just recently. Gee whiz, that was like, I was like a kid in a candy shop. Because of the actors that I'd studied coming through, Pacino was my number one. And there I am on stage with him, doing these fantastic scenes. That was a bit of a thrill. I've got another one coming up with another one of the same ilk. I can't talk about it just yet because they haven't announced it. But it's a thrill to actually go on stage with these extraordinary... Well, Chris Lloyd once out here, he came up onto Fringe and played a sort of spaced out ex-musician, druggie. And it's wonderful. And Leonard Nimoy, we talk about these people, And I do love working with the people like that. And there's so many good actors around. I guess I'm just talking about the legends at this stage, who were my heroes, but so many good actors. A few great actors. No, not everyone's a great actor, but some of them are. You can just see it. They're good enough to get by. And there's a few more. I don't really think I've got too many more that I want to work with, but I shouldn't say that in case I get offered something. But there are a couple. Yes. I don't know, I'll have to wait. Yes, ma'am.
I love to hear about all the research that you've done in your past roles. I find that really interesting, and it just shows that you are so connected to the characters that you play. Do you have a favorite character that you have done research for and really just found yourself lost in that research?
I've already mentioned two big roles. The life of Walter Bishop was different. He was very different from us. That required a lot of thought, but it was never a chore. It was always seemed natural to me to go with that. Denethor was harder, trying to develop a background that made sense of these insane acts he was doing. But most of the time it's there, you can find it, and if you can't find it there, you invent it. And always, but you can't leave. Say you're doing a role and you're travelling along well, and suddenly you get a part where it's not quite working. It's either that you can constantly forgetting a line or something. Oh, there it is again. I call that an acting problem because it means that I haven't done my process right. Because I should never hit the situation where I am speechless or I've lost a line. There's a progression through it. It's the way I learn anyway. It's the way I teach how to learn. So I never have that problem at all. But if I wasn't prepared, I would have, I tell you. Did that answer the question? Yes. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, two things about the structure of the Fringe show. It seemed like the ending was kind of rushed. Was there thought about going on to a different season?
No, good question. It's quite often asked. It was a fantastic show, and it was on network television, which is incredibly competitive, as you know. And that's why so many good shows get dropped after one season or something, because it's just numbers. And we were always we were okay, but we weren't topping the pops. And so when it came around towards the end, Fox decided that perhaps they'd had enough of Fringe and would go into something else. But the fans, you guys, got into them because the early days of social media, they ripped into Fox and said, don't you dare take that off. And really heavy. And so Fox sort of capitulated a bit and gave us half a season to finish it off, which I think we, trying to tie up a story that big over 12 episodes was. But I thought they did it. I thought the writers did it very well. So that's how it came to be that way.
When you got your scripts, and this was the second question, you were reading them over ahead of time. As the story progressed, did the characters, you or any other characters, say, I don't think that they would say that or do that?
Oh, yeah.
And if they did, did the writer ever restructure?
Yeah, look,
what
you
was
do
said?
question things sometimes. Because you probably know the character better than anyone in the world. So, like, if you get a guest director in, they don't really give you directions on how to play the character because you know it better than they do. You don't run into that, but there are occasions sometimes when lines don't work and you very courteously say, well, but we set up a couple of episodes ago that he'd had his arm cut off or something, and now he doesn't have it cut off. That's a simple but you watch for those continuation things where there's an anachronism or something with the character who, from what we know of the past, wouldn't go anywhere near that particular thing. So you talk to them about it, and if they don't agree with you, then you make a way to make it work. I don't change the dialogue ever. It's so disrespectful to change people's dialogue without consulting them. And some actors think, all right, just get out there and ad-lib. No, you don't. No, it doesn't work. It's too complicated and it's too intertwined. Everything is intertwined, So many levels and layers that go into making a television show. It's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me that we shoot something and then a few weeks later it's all completed with this soundtrack they've recorded. In the meantime, got the orchestra and done all that, all these beautiful effects. That's amazing. It's amazing that people are able to do this. The machine is so, and every person in that machine, every person is important. From the PA that's made to stand out by the door in the middle of the snow, through to the directors. Everyone's important because you take one out and the wheels fall off, or can fall off. So I always have a tremendous amount of respect for the teamwork involved in what we do, and it is a teamwork. And it's very willing and people get on well and good professionals. That's required from us to work as a team a lot of the time. All of the time, in my opinion. Some people don't want to, but I do. I like working as a team. Sorry, I don't know if I've answered your question, Rod.
I wanted to ask you about Elementary.
Yes.
Specifically, how intimidating, or if it wasn't intimidating at all, to take up the role of the father of one of the best-known literary characters in history, to take up the role of Morstan Holmes?
Well, no. Well, going back to what I was talking about earlier, you're presented with a role and you do your background on it. And it's not intimidating, it's interesting. For example, with Elementary, I don't know how many people saw it, but I played Morland Holmes. Oh, thank you. And Morland Holmes was one of that breed of men that obviously lived above the law, or lived above international laws, and there are people around, believe me. So I started to research that and found out how much goes on beyond government, beyond any of it. These cabals and groups that meet together that control the world. It's become more evident now with the financial stuff, but at that stage it wasn't. So I did all that and read some books and I'm like, God, it's interesting. Oh, the power of these people. So I did that, looked at his background with his sons, tried to create a history of what would have happened to the wife in that sense. So you go into all these machinations trying to get the background of them because he himself would certainly know what happened to the wife, so therefore I should at least have an opinion about it. So I played it, and then it was playing against Sherlock Holmes was a genius. And so playing against that all the time was a bit confronting, not for me personally, but for the father. And Johnny Lee Miller was just so spot on with that role. Yes, he was. He was a serious fella. Johnny, it wasn't fun working with Johnny. Well, I mean, a compliment is that he's a fabulous actor, and I got to work with people like Lucy Liu, and who I adored, and some of the other actors involved in it. But it had its moments. But having done the background again, same as previous questions, I was never intimidated by it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. How we doing? Yes, sir. Oh, hello.
Hello. I'm considering going into voice acting. I was hoping you could talk about the differences between stage acting, film acting, and what's important in voice acting.
Well, it's still acting. That's the key word. Still acting. When I was a youngster, because I've got a voice that's pretty good, and I was out partying somewhere with an executive of some advertising firm. He said, "You're the voice man. It's an Australian accent, actually. You got to come in." Oh, I was pretty excited about this. I was young. So I went into there. I didn't know what to do, but I thought I had to sound like a radio announcer. That's what I thought. So I've gone in there and I've given the big drive thing. No. Hello, this is... No. You're not a radio announcer. Just settle down. And I didn't get anywhere with that one because I didn't know what the hell they wanted. So I said to a friend of mine, a woman who's a wonderful voice actor, I said, what do you do? She said, I just get in there and act. I said, you act? Yes, I act. So she said, if I'm expressing something in the booth, a little booth, should I get into it and I muscle my way through and I punch and I kick? She acts the whole thing. There was the key to me. Stop trying to pretend that you're a radio announcer. Just act the role and make sure you're into the mic, but you know. So I took that advice and I still do it. I still love galloping around sometimes. If I'm trying to get to a point, you know, at least to animate the voice. And but it was acting to start with. It had to be, for me, acting. So I had to get some background on it. With voice acting, the difference, sorry to bore you if you don't know anything about this, but basically you go into a booth and initially on a game, for example, you'll test several voices with the producer. You say, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do this. And they'll settle on one, and then you'll say, okay, that's the voice I'll use for this character. That's a bit different from stage acting. But I like the process because it gives me a chance to throw them options, throw alternatives, voices at them, and sometimes it works. Sometimes that's good, that alternative. Well, let's do that one. So there's still that amount of collaboration, and it's not physical. That's basically the only difference. The rest of it is still acting, and not trying to make your voice do things your character wouldn't. This is important. I was intimidated when I first came into acting in film and television because I was a stage actor. I had this big Shakespearean voice, and I'd come in for auditions. And they, no. I was failing badly. And eventually what they were looking for at that stage was that sort of 90210 whispering acting, you know. You whisper and look over your shoulder. Whisper again and look over your shoulder. I thought, that's what they want. They want me to behave like a fool. It was to do with let the technicians, and I've used this all my life, let the technicians do the technical work in terms of volume. If you get a good sound mixer on a television show, they let you know if there's anything not working. I trust them completely. And sometimes I'll say to them, just in a minute, I'm going to have an outburst, so they can adjust the volumes back to the receiver. So the collaboration exists there very much so. Or if I'm constantly making a mistake, then the sound mixer will come and speak to me. It doesn't happen very much, but you know, it can happen. But we all trust each other. I trust them, totally. They're good at what they do. They must have worked really hard to get those jobs, you know, those responsible jobs. So, yeah. So I think, yeah, go on.
Yeah, just kind of have a follow-up for that. As far as your voices and your different characters, how do you research as far as the voice and finding how a character, because all your characters seem to have a different, none of them all sound the same. So what is your process to find a voice for a character?
It's a really interesting question. A lot of it is to do with the state of mind of the character. So if you were playing a character who is triumphant in a situation, your voice would be strong. But if you're playing someone that's actually being beaten back, the voice changes. If I'm using the accent. Or it can go very, very fast or very slow. very softly sometimes. All those things come into play. But I enjoy that process very much of discovering the voices. As I said earlier, I come in with a few voices up my sleeve in case there's something new, something interesting to consider. I was in New York once working up there, and I got asked to go and do a voice for quite a popular show. I can't remember what it was. And I saw it walking down 6th Avenue, going, what should I do? What should I do? So I made up about 4 voices on the way, just on the walk from my place and just went in and presented. They said, yeah, number 2, we'll keep that one. That was it. But I thought about it as best I could with the information that was available to me. Had some options up my sleeve so I didn't get thrown, get intimidated by people, you know. So, well, that's, we're glad we did. That voice is not going to work, mate. You're going to have to change that voice. You know, that sort of stuff. Not that it happens, but if it did happen, I'd go, yeah, would too. Sorry. Yeah, that's it. Yes, sir, ma'am.
I wanted to know if you had any fun stories from the set of Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow. Funny Sleepy Hollow was produced or written by a friend of mine who was one of the executive producers on Fringe, or creators of Fringe, actually. And I knew that they were going to do a new show, and I'd shot back to Australia for a while. I get a call from him saying, would you consider doing this show, which had opened the night before in the States. Anyway, he talked to me about it, and I said, gee, that sounds interesting. So I went across to do it, and the first season of Sleepy Hollow was exceptional. That was also written by the man I'm talking about that rang me. He wrote that, and you could see the writing's wonderful. Wonderful. He's a genius, this fella. But the second season, he went off to do something else, create another show, and they brought another showrunner, another chief writer, who really didn't get it. Didn't get it. I know from my character, I'm thinking, he doesn't know what to do with us. You know, we're all bloody... And he didn't. He sort of pushed himself into tangents. But anyway, I was going to... I'd made an arrangement that I wanted to only do 2 years. So I was glad I did that. And I went and did Elementary up in New York. But it was... I went back and did a couple of final episodes of it. It was a fantastic story, but I don't know... How long can you keep something like Sleepy Hollow going? It's the same story over and over again. Sometimes I think with shows, we try to push them too hard, try to get another season out of things because the money's rolling in, and it just ruins the stories. Doesn't it? You find that shows that go on for 10 seasons, so, yeah. But the goal used to be to get 100 performances, 100 episodes back in the day, because that way you could be syndicated. In other words, once there's 100 up, it could be sold as a package to places all over the world. So the aim is to get to 100, which we got to, just. By just. That's part of the objective of it. So, oh dear. Just got there. That's been good though, because we actors get royalties on some shows, which means that you get say you're doing Fringe, then you get a certain amount of royalties. It can go on forever, really. Finishes up being about 2 cents, but that's really a useful source of income, I tell you. My wife loves it. So the checks will come in, and I say, you can open up, like, aha, new kitchen. New kitchen. I said, I just work for your whim, woman. She always had it planned out. Darling girl. Still with her after 50 years, so it can't be too bad. Yes. Oh, thank you. It's her birthday today, and here I am again. She said to me a while ago, at our anniversary was on the 25th of last month, she said, you know how many years since we've been together on our anniversary or my birthday? No. And here we are again. But we'll make up for that. Our years in the sunset, sitting back in an armchair, sun beating down on me, listening to music, getting fed by her. She's a great cook. That's my life. Oh, I've got a few habits. Oh, not habits, hobbies. Habits. A few hobbits. I have some hobbies. That's what I'll be doing. So it's funny. It does disrupt your personal life a bit, but we've made it work. We made it work for us. So, what was the question again? See, I always do this. What was the question again?
Just somebody else's question.
Oh, okay.
I'm
We're
a
good.
person.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for coming to Cincinnati. If it's your first time, I hope you get a chance to explore the city a little. And I wanted to thank you for what you brought to Denethor, because to me he is such a complicated character he brings up so many emotions, and like the scene where Faramir says to him, "Would you rather it have been me than Boromir?" And you said yes.
Yes, I wish that. That was a tough line.
Yeah. I want to tell you, in the theater, a little boy behind me, like a 10-year-old, just gasped. And I just thought, what is going on in his life that hit him so hard? So, I mean, it was just so many powerful scenes with Denethor. And to me, he is such a tragic character. And Pippin's relationship with Denethor helps humanize him. And you see different layers of him. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about your relationship with Billy Boyd, and were you in the same set when he sang the song?
Home certainly was.
I mean,
that was a very big scene
huge.
You're talking about. Yeah, well, see, Billy, apart from being an absolutely charming fella, he's a lovely boy, man. Now he's a boy then. We're all boys at that stage. So yeah, but he also in the story he did pledge fealty to Denethor. And Denethor valued that greatly, you know, loyalty, fealty. But I was in the room when he sang, and we'd been out the night before, just having a coffee, perhaps a beer, I can't remember. And Billy said, "I've got this thing to do tomorrow. Peter's asked me to do this song." I don't know if Billy wrote the lyrics or the music, whatever it was. Anyway, he said, I've been working on it. So we were doing that big scene that you're talking about, and I'm up at the table, much. And he's down here, and Faramir's down the back. And he's just standing there looking at me. I said, "Can you sing, Master Hobbit?" He said, "Well, yeah, I've had a bit of a sing around the campfire," or whatever he said. I said, "Well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me." And that point, because Peter Jackson said to him, like, "Can you just check the levels there, please, Bill, just to check them out, you know?" 100 or 200 people in that big set, it was a huge set, working, getting ready. He started to sing. I promise you, within about 5 seconds, couldn't hear a pin drop in the whole place. Everyone just stopped. So beautiful, that song that he sang. I had bloody tears in my eyes. I'm playing Denethor. It was so gorgeous. He's a champion. So it wasn't hard to be attached to Billy Boyd in those scenes. He is a sweetheart too. I still see him every now and again. He's been here, I think. Pippin. Yeah, it's funny. He reward. He reminds me of this current ex-president. He just wants. You have to like him, or you're done. And Denethor was heading down that way a bit. Anyone that spurned him, he would have been enemies, I suspect. But Billy offered loyalty, and that was all he wanted. Yep. That's the counterpoint, and he got it right on. So he could show all this affection for this young hobbit, but to his own beautiful son, he couldn't do it. Such a hard line to do that. He says it, but you know what? Sorry, we're talking about a specific scene. we're in Lord of the Rings, we're doing this sort of finale for my character, where we're going down. I've decided that in my sanity, that the best thing to do is to let's both burn together. We'll burn ourselves. I remember the line that led up to that. I was walking in the corridor, and it was something like, "No tomb for Denethor or Faramir. No long, slow sleep of death embalmed. We shall burn like the heathen kings of old." That was the introduction. As he was walking down. By the way, it was the first lines I ever got to deliver in the show, because it's all shot out of sequence. Oh shit, this is a big one to start with. And I was laden down with this flippin' chainmail. So heavy. Oh, golly. So there. Yeah. Billy Boyd.
I think that's actually our time.
Oh, it's on.
No, you're fine.
That was a question. Is it time? Thank you very much, everyone.
We want to say thank you for coming to Cincinnati
It's been a
Comic
pleasure
Expo.
being here with you in Cincinnati. Bless ya. See ya.
Let's hear it for one more time for John Noble.